Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cardano Live and happy Friday afternoon. Things seem to be going really well for Cardano. And today we have a really great Cardano Live for you. NFTs have been kind of exploding on Cardano. Lots of NFTs out there. And people have had questions, what are NFTs? How do they work? Today, I have two experts here. I have Dylan and Willie. Both of them are engineers. They are degreed engineers, very capable. They're experts. And I call you experts. You might not call yourself experts. I'm going to call you experts. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Cardano Live today. I very much appreciate it. And we have lots of questions coming from the community about how do these NFTs work, where are they stored. Let's start with the basics and then kind of go into the advanced as we go along here. So starting off with, what is an NFT?
Yeah, so NFT stands for non-fungible token. So it's a token on the blockchain that's different than, say, like an ADA. So like if you send someone ADA, one ADA is no different than another ADA. But for an NFT, they're unique and have unique properties. So that's kind of the basic difference between just an ADA or a Bitcoin or something versus an actual non-fungible token.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. And I apologize. I should say each person's name instead of just throwing a question out there.
Yeah.
I forgot my manners. I apologize for that. I was like, I just threw that question out there like, hey, someone take this one. Okay, so NFTs, non-fungible tokens. How's it stored on a blockchain? There's a lot of different moving parts here. You got wallets. You got the blockchain, you have websites, you have some weird file system out there in the world you guys are going to explain to us. Let's start off. How is it stored on a blockchain? How does it move around?
Yeah, so on the blockchain, it's stored as a token. You'll see it in a wallet, just like ADA. It's an asset that's separate. So if you, say, boot up data list, you have a token in there, you'll see a list of all the tokens you have in your wallet. And what that is basically the token itself is just a certificate of ownership of some asset that is usually stored off-chain. Blockchains are a poor place to put large amounts of data, like a picture or a video or a GIF, because everything on the blockchain, everyone that uses it has to download the entire amount, right? So you don't store gigabytes of data on a blockchain. What's in the token itself is just a set of metadata, which is just basically some text that describe the token. If it's like digital artwork, usually it will have a link to where the artwork is stored off-chain. And so the most common place that is stored is IPFS, which stands for Interplanetary File System. That is a peer-to-peer network where it's a decentralized way to store immutable data and access to the internet. And so by immutable meaning you can't go back and edit it afterwards. So you can upload an image, it gets shared across a bunch of nodes, so it's decentralized, and your metadata can point to the location of that picture and it will always look the same. We can't go back and change it. So, and then individual websites, like tools that let you see tokens, like pool.pm is a common place people go for Cardano to see tokens getting minted and traded. That is pulling that metadata from the blockchain and then ingesting pictures off-chain from, say, IPFS.
Wow, that's a brilliant in a nutshell, Willie. Thank you for that. All right, so both of you gentlemen, you're stake pool operators. You are software developers. Which stake pool do you operate?
We operate the Viper stake pool.
Okay. All right. And I've got the links down below in the description. I got links to your website there. You've also built NFTs as well. Which NFTs did you guys build?
Oh, we built ADA cards. They're stake pool trading cards for Cardano.
Okay. All right. So the stake pool trading cards, and you see those popping up on pool.pm. They're just kind of rolling on through there as they come into existence, I guess, per se. All right. And you're both engineers and developers. Let's use your NFTs as an example. That's why I have you guys come on here, because you are the experts. Okay. You're the experts. How do those particular NFTs come into existence? And can you give me some examples of any other ones you are familiar with? Like how do these trading cards come into existence? How are they generated?
Yeah, so they're generated through what we call the minting process. So the Cardano node has tools for for doing that, minting a native asset, so you can create your own tokens. There's some nuances with creating tokens on the Cardano blockchain in particular. So the token itself doesn't store data. The data is actually, the metadata is stored in the minting transaction. So you can look on Cardano Scan for one and look at a native token, and you'll be able to find the transaction that it was minted in. And inside the metadata of that transaction is all the metadata for the token. So you create a set of signing keys, which is your minting keys, and the hash of that of those keys together is the policy ID. So that's what everything that's minted under that policy ID. That's one thing you can kind of look for on the blockchain, and then there'll be a policy ID and then the actual asset name. And when those are minted, they're put on the blockchain. The metadata is stored in the transaction, so that's on the chain and can be searched and verified. And then the metadata usually has a link to the off-chain data that the NFT represents as a certificate of ownership. So for instance, we made some trading cards, and so we put in the metadata was the information about the trading card, like the pool, the block number for the pool, the Cardano block number, the different badges, sort of thing. We put that all in the metadata, and then also in the metadata was a link to IPFS, which has the actual image that we created with the pool logo and the blockchain information and stuff, all in that. And so, that's pretty much how the tokens come into existence on chain, is through that metadata that gets put in that minting transaction and then connected to off-chain data.
And just a quick note on counterfeiting. So as Dylan mentioned, the policy ID is how you uniquely know that the asset is what you think you're purchasing, right? So our NFTs are called ADA cards. So our assets will be like, ADA card number 1234. But anyone can go make an asset and call it ADA card 1234. The unique part is right, yeah. The unique part is that policy ID, which is a long string of letters and numbers, and that uniquely says that if it matches, say, what is put on the creator's website saying this is the policy ID for this project, if that matches, now it's a genuine NFT and not a counterfeit. So that's very important to verify anytime you're buying, trading NFTs.
Right,
I'm
because
glad
when
you pointed that.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say because when an NFT is minted, it's signed, that transaction signed by a set of keys. So that policy ID is unique to that set of keys. So the only way someone could steal that policy ID is to get access to all the keys that signed that minting transaction.
Okay, so the policy ID cannot be counterfeited. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep. Okay, so the policy ID is important. Now, that is visible in Yoroi and Daedalus. It's kind of hard to read.
Yeah.
Right? It is kind of hard to read. But if you want to know you got the real deal, you're going to have to validate the policy ID. That's probably not a bad idea. So have a way. How do I extra verify it? The policy ID is a big number, but it does verify that you do have the correct one. Because counterfeiting can and will be a problem.
Yeah, and don't go just look at the last 4 digits. You can even see certain stake pools. They churn through generating the hash for their stake pool to get some unique header or something. All their stake pools start with 00123 or something. Someone could churn through these policy IDs and get something that looks similar to another one. So don't just look at a few digits. Make sure you check at least 10 or 12 or something. Make something that would be hard to counterfeit. So.
Yeah, what's that called? Grinding it, or there's a word for it, but they just run it, hash it until they get the number they're looking for. It takes a lot of compute to do that, but it is a thing. It is a thing. It is kind of neat too. But
it's called mining on Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's called yeah, cool. All right, so there's several different types of NFTs. You guys gave a description of how yours are generated, created, and then stored out there in the world, somewhere out there in the world. There's other NFTs like the Cardano bits, Crypto Nitties, several different ones out there, Space Buds. Lots of really cool and ingenious stuff. Now, where is it stored? You mentioned it earlier, Willie. If you want to dive into that a little deeper, where is it stored? How is it stored like that? And why is it stored like that? What's it called?
Yeah, they're typically stored in IPFS, interplanetary file system. So those are stored there to provide a permanent location to host a non-changeable file. For instance, a picture. It's stored like that because if again, what you're buying is the token is a certificate of ownership, right? So it's basically a title or a deed to some digital artwork, or in the future, a car or something, right? Maybe a physical asset. So it's very important that the place that points to cannot change and can't go away, right? So if that just points to someone's website, and 2 years later they shut down the server, what you own no longer exists, right? So it's very important that the place it's stored is separate from the entity that created it, right? And it has some immutable way to store it so it can't later be changed.
And I'll just add to that a little bit. So like IPFS is semi-permanent. It is technically possible for something to go away on IPFS because what happens is the nodes will pin files that are being accessed. And so that you put an image on IPFS, it propagates to the different nodes. If no one accesses it in a very long time, IPFS can clear their cache. These nodes can clear their cache, and the image can go away. So there's been these blockchain projects that have been springing up, like Filecoin and Arweave and stuff, where basically they have a token and mining and stuff on top of that, but they're basically running on top of IPFS or something like it, and they essentially ensure that your image gets pinned so that on at least one node, so that it can't actually ever go away. And so that's kind of one of the nuances to that there. But the images are stored, they hash the file, so that's why we were saying like it can't be changed, because the link would change. So our links in our metadata can't ever point to a different picture, because that different picture would have a different hash and would not, the link wouldn't work. So.
Okay. And I think there's a group of developers on Cardano. I think it's Merrick Mayhut's team. They're running something called Blockfrost, and then Blockfrost has an IPFS. They built that in there as well. So I guess they're running multiple IPFS nodes. So I'm assuming they're doing something like that, pinning it or pinging it or refreshing it, so that it's a permanent solution to the NFTs. Now, what's funny that you say that is what I've seen happen is there's a technology on Ethereum where you can sell tweets. You can raffle them off. And somebody purchased a tweet as an NFT, and the original person deleted it, and it was gone. So now what they own is a gray box that says this tweet has been deleted. They paid like 1 ETH for it, so you got a $3,000 freaking gray box. It says deleted. Yeah, that's not what we want to have happening. So IPFS, pretty solid stuff for the storage of those NFTs. And of course, so the metadata is stored on chain, and it's also either in your wallet, or if you're using Yoroi, it's on the Yoroi servers that your wallet's pointing to. Let's see here. What other use cases can you think of for NFTs? And what I mean by that is, right now we've seen an explosion of digital art, right? But what else can you do with them? Is it just digital stickers and digital, what else can we do with them?
No, yeah, I mean this is kind of the proving ground, right? Like digital art's kind of an easy foray into the space, but I think the real value is ownership of real assets that aren't just art, right? So staying in the digital realm, video games, they could have decentralized marketplaces, or if you own an item, or like land in a game or something, that can be verified on a blockchain separate from the actual developers, right? So it could follow a standard, it could be traded, and it doesn't rely on the actual game software itself, right? You could have a token verifying you own a certain thing. But the real exciting part is moving into the physical world, right? So if a token could represent the ownership of a house or a car, stuff like that, I think that's the real value, and it's just going to take some time in getting the NFTs adopted and accepted in the real world, and have that actually tie into contract law, so it's actually legally binding, right? But then at that point, you can, just do a peer-to-peer trade of, sell your car to someone and just send a token to their wallet, and that's it. And it's verifiable. It can't be counterfeited. Can't burn up in your house if you keep your car title in your house, right? I think in 10, 20 years we'll think it's ridiculous that everything was just on paper nowadays, right?
Yeah, I still do that today. I was working with systems where people have a document in a computer and they would print it out and fill it out and then scan it back in to send to somebody so they can re-enter it into a computer. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing that. And this is in recent history. This was in the last couple of years. I'm like, come on, guys. That is not efficient at all. Yeah. So like car registrations, land ownership, marriage certificates.
Yeah, degrees, right? There's already universities putting their degrees on the blockchain. So, that's a common thing too, right? Someone lies on their resume, says they have a degree from a university, right? How many companies actually go verify that with the actual university, right? But if it's on the blockchain and signed by that university, there's no, like human-to-human interaction needed, right? You can just instantly verify that you are who you say you are and you have the credentials that you claim. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and while we were talking, Willie had mentioned video games and stuff, and I was thinking, as engineers, we use a lot of software, and those softwares have all these different license keys and stuff, and software licensing for a lot of these expensive tools could be easily done using NFTs as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of these software licenses are very expensive, and there's a whole market out there on how to break the keys and the dark web to go get keys that have been broken to these software. So, yeah, that can help companies protect their intellectual property. And that's always a good thing as well. Kind of like with Cardano, the initial trial was with New Balance using color coins for the New Balance anti-counterfeiting. So. That's pretty cool. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat. So just so y'all know that we're also doing an AMA. So if you have questions, let us know in the chat. Let's see here. Ricky Ricardo has a question, and he says, I'm very new to NFTs. And thanks for these questions, because we have two experts here. And if they can't answer the question, that's okay. But thanks for being here, guys, for being here. Having experts on the show. All right. Ricky Ricardo asks, how copyright infractions could be regulated? For example, what would prevent me to create and sell a Pokemon card? And in those lines, what would prevent duplicates? Okay, now this is a good question because I have already seen some questionable things on the NFTs, and I'm going, isn't that like copyright restricted, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're not lawyers, you guys are engineers and developers, but is there anything that would prevent someone from creating and selling a Pokemon card on the blockchain?
So as of right now, there's really not. So when we made ours, we were concerned about the possibility of copyright infringement. So we talked with the Cardano Foundation and everybody to make sure, logos and that sort of thing were all legit. But technically, there's not too much that could be done at this point until the laws sort of catch up and recognize what people are doing as with the NFTs and are able to sort of enforce copyright law with regard to NFTs.
Right. Okay. While there's nothing preventing people from making those, there's nothing preventing those people from getting sued, right? So
that's true.
People making NFTs do need to be careful. And It's not like you can go take it down after, right? Like once it's out there, it's out there. So we actually had a lot of concern about that because, like, man, if we make a mistake, right, like there's no going back. So we were really diligent up front to make sure we didn't have to go back.
Well, good for you guys, because I will tell you, there are some, I'm not trying to be mean, but some people try to remain anonymous in case they either make a mistake or they don't want to be held accountable. That's usually what I see. Some people like their privacy. That's fine also. But, if you're doing dodgy stuff and you're using an anonymous ID because you don't want to be held accountable, well, you need some people need to think about what they're doing. Now, I had Marco Guerra on here on an earlier podcast, and he was an expert in collectibles. He is a collectibles expert. That's what he does for a living. And he touched on that as well. And he said, you might get, someone will say, hey, stop doing that. Stop copywriting our stuff. Stop using our copyrighted stuff without our permission, right? And so that's really like the first infraction or what they would do. But,
Right.
yeah.
Cease and desist letter.
Yeah.
I don't know how
cease
you
and
desist.
desist letter.
Yeah.
And then there's also lawsuits, like Willie said. So it doesn't absolve you from a lawsuit. They could say, oh, well, you sold this stuff and you made $500,000 in some of the recent NFT sales, 500,000 equivalent, $1 million equivalent. And they might say, well, we're going to sue you for that $1 million.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. So hand it over. You used our stuff.
Don't give anybody ideas here, Rick.
And then to touch on the second part of the question, he asked about duplicates. You can see on like Cardano Scan, if you look at a policy ID, you can see every token minted under that ID, and you can see a quantity. So there's nothing preventing us, someone from making multiple versions of the same token, except that that is illegal to note. Like you can't sell, 2 certificates of ownership to 2 different people for the same asset, right? But there's nothing preventing that from happening on the blockchain. So it's important to go look and make sure there's really a quantity of 1 for every token. There were past issues with other NFT projects that mint on the fly, like at the point of sale, and there was a bug in a code and it caused a few tokens to get double minted. So those are things you kind of have to look out for. And it can be semi-corrected if the owner gets the token back. They can then go burn a token, and then that removes it from the blockchain. And so in a case where there is like a double minting of something, it could be corrected in that way.
Is there a way I can tell? Let's say I buy a unique NFT. It's one of one. There's only one in existence. Is there anything that prevents or alerts me from the originator from creating more? Can I tell? Is there a way for me to tell if they do create more? I look at the policy ID and it no longer says 1, it says 2 or 5. Pretty much, is that it?
That's pretty much it right now. I mean, there's not really an automated way to tell. Maybe that's a service that people can set up as, we're anticipating the development of once smart contracts come out on Cardano of exchanges and marketplaces for NFTs, and so that might be a service that's able to be built in. All
right, I got a funny question here. Thanks, Dylan. All right, so Bruce Lord says, if I divorce my wife, how do I cut an NFT in half? Because she's going to
Hopefully she's not listening.
I don't think you can cut NFTs in half, can you?
No, but you can burn the token, so that can get rid of the token, but you can't cut it in half.
One Trippy Planet asks, you think a car dealership can sell a car with an NFT from a big name artist to retain some of the value? And I mean, that's a good example. Like, if let's say you make a Michael Jordan card on Cardano, and is there a way for Michael Jordan to sell it, to sign it, to verify it, and they can say, "Ooh, this is a signed Michael Jordan card"?
That's interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if someone could verify that they own a wallet, right? So Michael Jordan could say, could sign something with his private key from the wallet saying, I own this, right? And then on the blockchain, you could see that passed through his wallet, right? Or if it was a car, I think was the example, right? If someone owned that car and then sold it to someone else, right? There would, that's the whole history. That's the point of the blockchain, right? Is you have a permanent ledger of every transaction.
Yeah, I think it's a
really cool.
Excellent idea. It would just need someone to be able to publicly verify that, sign something with that same key to show that it did come from them.
Wow, that's a good question. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's see. No, Rodrigo Faria, but he made a statement, not really a question. He said, so in the future, NFTs can reference Itala Prism technology to validate ownership. That sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's what it's there for. Natala Prism is that's you can also validate credentials because it already has
Right.
the ability to do that. So if a university issues you a credential, like Dylan, you have a doctorate's degree, and your university could issue that, and you could scan it. Once they do, maybe they currently don't, but you could scan it, and now you have it validated on the blockchain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Will, you got a Master of Science in Aeronautical Engineering. That sounds so cool, man. I love that. It's awesome. Let's see. Is the Cardano logo copyright protected, or is anyone able to use it because it is an open protocol? That was from Johan Weiss. Johan, you would have to, the policy is on the Cardano forum. You'd have to go to cardano.forum.org, and the lady who does the legal for the Cardano Foundation has posted that policy there. So check the policy on cardano.forum.org, and it's not Discord, it's Discourse. It's a discourse server.
Yeah. And it's also on the Cardano Foundation's website as well. We talked to them and read through the policy. Basically, the guidance we were given is that they want the Cardano logo to be used to get out there and to help grow the community. But they do own it. They own the trademark, so you can't modify it. They give you a set of logos that it's okay to use, and if you want to use that as part of what you're doing to build something on Cardano, that's fine, but you can't change things.
Okay, there you go. And Smog helped answer that question. Thank you, Smog, the creator of pool.pm. Smog is in chat there, and he said you can use the logo if you respect their trademark policy, and that trademark policy is posted over at the Cardano forum.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And just so you guys know, when I got that pizza made, that was the pizza I got there. I had them put the pepperoni in the shape of the Cardano logo.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Can I make that box into an NFT?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do it.
Make that box an NFT. Raffle it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sign it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ada Planet says maybe NFTs need a certification by a trusted party. Well, that would be a permission blockchain. Is it possible to make a certification by a trusted party?
So I think that it kind of comes down to what Willie was saying earlier about like verifying that like Michael Jordan signed it or whatever. Companies a public authority can set up and say, this is our NFT, this is our stuff, and we're going to verify that, or a third party could do that as a service, verify these collectibles and the NFTs, but then they would be able to verify those with their signing keys. So I think it's definitely something that could be set up. It would be a kind of a case-by-case sort of thing.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dylan, and thank you, Willie. And that's almost it for the questions that I had on here that we talked about before the podcast. I had one. What is the current limitations of NFTs? And this would be, for example, the size, the byte size, any technical limitations you guys familiar with? Yeah.
So I'll just start because when I was minting the tokens for our NFT project, the transaction size, the metadata size is limited for a transaction. So we sort of played around with how many NFTs could we mint in a single transaction, and we found that we could mint about 30 with the size of our metadata. So we actually, our metadata was a good size. We had several fields in there, and that goes in as like a file of JSON data. And that goes as the transaction metadata. So it kind of depends on how large the metadata is for your NFT. You could go larger than that, but we found that we could mint them in about 30 at a time. And then the other thing that we found was interesting is we tried to send our NFTs, package our NFTs as packs, like 5 tokens at a time, and send them. And we found that we didn't realize at first, we minted all these tokens in transaction sizes of 30. So that meant that all these tokens sat in UTXOs with 30 other tokens, unspent transaction outputs, right? So then if we tried to pull out 5 random tokens and send it, it would combine 5 UTXOs if they weren't all in the same one, and we would have 5 tokens go out, and then 145 tokens in in a UTXO, and that was okay. But then the next time that happened, eventually the transaction size got too big for the wallet to handle, because like you said, there is a transaction size limit, a UTXO size limit and stuff. So the wallet started crashing after we sent a couple of tokens, and as we were testing. And so so that was one of the limitations that we learned pretty quick was, we have to consider your UTXO size and how are things getting combined. And so what we ended up doing with our particular NFT project was if we wanted to send out random packs, we decided on we put together all the packs and randomized them and then minted them in packs. So there was 5 NFTs in a UTXO and then 5 NFTs in another UTXO, and that way when we would send out 5 at a time, we were just consuming one UTXO, and our transaction size wasn't getting too big and crashing the wallet.
Okay, Dylan, you bring up a really good point here as well, like UTXOs and transaction sizes. How does that affect the transaction cost when sending and receiving NFTs? What does that do to it?
Yeah, so there's 2 things that it affects. So one is just the transaction fee itself. So if you go to send someone ADA right now, with the way the fees are set up, it's about 0.167 whatever ADA to send a transaction of just ADA. It depends on how many UTXOs are being consumed, by the way. I had a wallet that had like a bunch of small UTXOs, and I tried to send it, and the fees were a little bit larger, like 0.3 or something ADA, because it combines so many of them. So when you go to send a token, right, the UTXOs, the transaction size is larger than just sending ADA. So the transaction fee itself is slightly more, like 0.2 ADA instead of 0.16 or whatever. But the other thing is that the Cardano blockchain is designed in such a way that there's a minimum number of UTXOs that can exist on chain. And so what that does is that sort of that requirement enforces a minimum UTXO size. So right now, like if you had one ADA in your wallet and you wanted to send, if I had one ADA in my wallet and I wanted to send half an ADA to Willie, the chain wouldn't let me do that because I have to have at least one ADA in the output. So I'd have to either send the whole thing or none. It works kind of the same when you go to start sending NFTs, because of the way the NFTs work and some of the transaction size stuff that I don't fully understand. Worked through the equations, but I don't fully understand. That minimum UTXO size changes. So like if I was to send 5 tokens to Willie or whatever, I would have to include 2.5 ADA in that transaction would have to go with him as well. So that's something that is sort of kind of interesting in how the transaction of NFTs work on Cardano. The minimum ADA that has to go with the NFTs, and there's the transaction fee itself. Okay.
So where I observed this as a user, I purchased an NFT for 20 ADA.
Mm-hmm.
To buy it, I had to send 22.43869 ADA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Then they sent me the NFT, and they also sent back 2 point something ADA minus the transaction fee. So that's pretty much the dumbed down version, right?
Yeah, you can do it that way. The way we did it is we just gave them the 2 ADA for free, basically. So you might pay 50 ADA, but you got 2 back, so you really only paid like 48 or something.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Thank you, Dylan. And let's see. There's a few other questions. This is a pretty good AMA. We were going to try to wrap this up in 30 minutes, and we were just past that mark. But we do have some good questions in here. Whiskey1234 says that Digibyte does a thing called DigiID about security keys. Can this be used for NFT validation? Well, I don't know, because I don't know how that DigiID works on Digibyte.
Mm-hmm.
And if for NFT validation, I don't know, maybe that could be developed on Cardano as well, or maybe there's something there. I think multisig is coming, but it's not here yet. Is that correct? I don't remember.
So multisig is currently active. That's actually how we mint the NFTs, you can include multiple keys, and so those keys get put into a signing script that has all the keys, and you can specify I want 3 of these keys, or all of these keys, or just at least 1 of these keys. And so multi-sig is on Cardano. It's just not in like production for like wallets and that sort of thing. But for minting the NFTs, we did do multi-sig.
Okay, so there is something similar there. It might work differently, or the user interface might be different, but there's a similar technology as with Digibyte. But I would have to understand it better, how it works on Digibyte. Maybe I can have them come over here sometime eventually. And I think that's pretty much it for the NFT-related questions I see in the chat there. All right. Let me see. We touched on the limitations, your current experience with NFTs. Now, there was one other thing we were going to touch on. Wrapping up the NFT conversation there. If there's any other questions, let me know in the chat. Any burning questions, we can come back to them. You're going to touch on recovering the funds on the ITN. Now, there's a link to the description, link down in the description to how to recover ITN funds for people who had lost their keys. So while you're down there checking out the links, there's links to Viper's Twitter as well. So you check that out. Smash that like and subscribe button. Boost the metrics over here. That way more people will see Cardano live and we'll get more mass adoption. Okay, so there's your incentive for smashing the like and subscribe button. More mass adoption, smash those buttons, because, you know, we're not going to get there with just Moon Boy videos, green candle, number go up videos. We actually need videos where we have experts like Willie and Dylan come on here and tell us how things work, and people like Smog making things like Pool.pm and these guys building NFTs and all that cool stuff. That's where it's going to come from. So how did that work? Tell us your experience on that, guys. How did it work with recovering? The person lost their word seed. Is that the use case here? They don't have their word phrase. How do they do it?
Right. So it was specific to the ITN rewards, because when mainnet happened, the only way that people could redeem the rewards was by inputting the private key, or not the private key, but the seed phrase of their wallet that was on the ITN. And so some people had lost those and they couldn't recover their funds. So we got asked about helping with that by a community member, and we kind of dug through the code, and we realized that the wallet stores the private keys as encrypted, encrypted in the wallet file. And so if you have the password, you can actually decrypt those private keys and then create a transaction using the Cardano node to redeem those rewards. And so at a high level, that's what we was able to figure out how to do.
And you're actually able to help someone recover rewards they otherwise would have lost forever.
Yep.
Fantastic. And you have that information in the article down below. So,
yep.
Man, that's great. You know, if I were you guys, knowing what you know that I don't know, is you could actually run a service and say, hey, if you screwed yourself, contact us and we'll help you recover your funds. Just split it with me when you get it back. I get half the cut. Otherwise, it's lost. That's what I heard. The guy that lost his hard drive, the Bitcoin hard drive with like $270 million worth of Bitcoin on it. Like he made a deal. This is what I heard or read somewhere. He made a deal with an excavating company to go dig up the landfill and said, if you can dig my computer out of the landfill and I recover it, I'll give you half or something like that. Wow. But so if anyone still needs to recover ITN rewards, they can check out the link down below. If you know anyone, let them know. Refer them to this video. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Nice work. Nice work. Okay. Anything else before we wrap up for the day, guys? I'll give you the last word to let the audience know. Tell us about what kind of stuff you work on, your NFT work. We don't do pool shout outs on here. Sorry, we just can't. Sorry. And these guys know that. They know that. Otherwise, we can't advertise stuff like that. We can make mention of it in passing, and that's about it.
Willie, you want to tell them a little bit about Adafolio?
Yeah.
Adafolio. There you go. Tell us about that.
So that's a tool we made looking forward to multi-delegation. That it's a feature currently being worked on where you can split your wallet and delegate to multiple stake pools at once. So we created a website that lets community members go on and make portfolios of pools they would like to support. In the meantime, you can see cool metrics, like we have plots to show, return on stake versus pool size and stuff. So you can kind of use it as a tracker for now to keep track of multiple pools. But soon, when multi-delegation comes out, you can go to our site, you can pick a portfolio, say it's got 10 different pools in it. You download a JSON file that has the split defined between these pools, and you import it into your wallet. That might also be integrated into wallets in the future too. You just say, I want to, grab this portfolio from Adafolio in your wallet, and it'll split your stake, and now you're delegated to 10 different stake pools. Currently, you would have to do that manually by making 10 different wallets and send them to 10 different pools and pay the deposit 10 different times. So there's a 2 ADA deposit when you first delegate to a pool. That money you get back when you undelegate. But so check out the site, go make portfolios. If there's, we've got groups for charity pools or ITN pools, big pools, small pools, stuff like that. So it's cool to see how those different groups compare in, their ROS, their, the things they support, stuff like that. I think it's a pretty cool feature, and we're really looking forward to that feature coming out to Cardano.
That's amazing. You guys just dropped a bomb on me. We could do an entire podcast on this. I was like, whoa, I did not know you guys were the creators of Adafolio.
Yeah.
I had seen that in passing. That is fantastic. Thank you. I have it pulled up. Let me do a quick screen share on that, okay?
Cool. Yeah.
Let me do a quick screen share. Now, I know this is an audio podcast, so we have to be verbose and talk briefly to it. Otherwise, people are watching the audio. So that's adafolio.com. Oh, you got it. You got it. .com.
Yeah.
We splurged.
You guys are spending big bucks. Yeah, you splurged.
Yeah,
You
we've
guys
been railed
splurged
multiple
on this
times for
one.
being terrible marketers.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know it was you guys. Now people know. They go, oh, I can trust Adafolio now because I know it's Willie and Dylan, and Willie has a Master of Science, and he's a software developer and engineer, and Dylan's a PhD, and he does all these cool things, and you guys make NFTs and stake pools. So now, look at this. You guys made Adafolio. That's fantastic, man. I learn something new every day. I love it. It's a great Friday.
Yeah.
All right, so what we have listed on adafolio.com, you have like you were describing, Willie, charity pools, community developers, small pools, first epic pools, women in blockchain, caring community contributors, ITN pools, ISPPA, medium pools, African pools, the IOG cohorts, Cardano Foundation delegation. There's a lot of great stuff. So what I did is there anything else you want to say? I'm going to bring the screen share down. Oh, I see you got the about data down here. You got the team info. All right, you got your pool data. That's all kinds of good stuff. Anything else you want to say? I'll bring it down.
One thing to note is we don't ourselves want to sign up for maintaining 100 different lists. So most of these portfolios are created by other community members. Anyone's welcome to come make an account, make a portfolio, and share it. We choose some to feature on this front page. On the community portfolios, there's a lot more listed there, and those are kind of hand maintained by different people. So, for instance, the women in blockchain, Shweta made that, and she maintains that list. So you would contact her if you're interested in being added to it. And Rick, if you wanted to click on one of those, you can kind of show what a portfolio looks like. There's some nice plots and stuff.
Oops, sorry, I did this. Hold on a second. I think I clicked on a little bit more than what you wanted me to click on. There we go. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so you can see a list of all the pools included and some stats about the pools and stuff. And you can also like and share and download. What currently gets downloaded is not the specs still being defined on what a portfolio looks like. So we'll update that. We were actually cited in the Cardano improvement the format of where they're actually working on defining that. So we're tapped into the development that's happening and really excited for that to come out.
Yeah, that's fantastic because one of the hardest parts. Here's a very common question I get: does anybody have a list of all the blah 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 something in Cardano? Does anyone have a list of all the different NFTs on Cardano so they can get a list of all the different NFTs on Cardano, which is a lot. There's a lot now. Here's a list to all of the different pool types. Now, what the problem you guys solved here, what I'm getting at is, how do you maintain the list? It takes time. it takes effort, it takes research, right? So if you delegate people's ability to maintain that list, then the person who has the most interest in maintaining that list can maintain it, and then you'll have a pretty good list.
Yeah,
Absolutely brilliant.
And ideally, those lists are maintained by code for things that are verifiable. So, for instance, our ITN pools list comes from PoolTool, and those are only pools that have signed with their ITN pool private key that they were an ITN pool. So that is, verifiable and maintained by code. So it's automatically updated, and we don't have to hand maintain it. So it's always up to date. So we want to do that with as many things as we can. But things like whether a pool actually supports charities and stuff, right? That's still kind of up to interpretation. We hope services will come out in the future to on the blockchain certify that you're actually supporting the causes that you claim you are. But
Nice. That's great. You guys have really solved this problem of maintaining lists of stuff, and especially with that Adafolio. I just want to let people know I put the link over in the chat. The link will be down in the description down below. We're wrapping up the podcast here in just a minute. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on, and I would love to have you come back on. There's all kinds of stuff we can talk about, and I'll give you an example. Like when Babel fees come out, that's going to add both a layer of complexity and a layer of capability to the Cardano blockchain. And once we have a better understanding of how those are actually working, would you guys like to come on back over here on Cardano Live and tell us more about it?
Absolutely.
Once we wrap our heads around it. But the technology's got to be deployed. We got to understand it better, and then we can help pass that along to other people on how that is going to work. And anything else, man, you guys come up with, just let me know. Reach out to me on Telegram. And you're free to pop on over here. And if you got anything else I can help you get that information out, like Adafolio. That's absolutely brilliant. Love it. Gary Golden says, is one of you Satoshi?
No comment.
You wouldn't want to admit it now because you're sitting on like hundreds of billions of dollars. Right? All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. That's a wrap. Thank you to the viewers for joining us here on Cardano Live. Check out all the links down below. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. We have some really good Cardano Lives coming up next week. I am expecting a really big guest, one of the smartest people in blockchain out there. Maybe here Monday, maybe not. We'll see. I'm going to put a little teaser out there. I usually don't do that, but this one's a good teaser. And I think the two smartest guys in blockchain I ever met are sitting right here, right now. Thank you, Billy and Willie.
Thanks, Rick. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
It was great. Bye.
Yeah. It was great.